There we are. Right. No, I think somebody she booked, but she's not able to make it, so she asked if we could record it. So I'm going to do that. We'll give it a. Oh, we're still in before time, aren't we? So we're all right. Oh. It's turned wintry today, hasn't it? It's beginning to bite the cold.
Yeah, we're not used to it.
No, and all the leaves are coming off the trees. And since I've got a couple of trees in front of my house, I have to go out with, I've got a leaf blower, so I blow them all away.
But then they come back.
Oh no, I blow them down. I've got a river in front of me as well, and I'm a bit higher than the river, so I blow them down the bank.
That's cheating.
Well, good compost for the bits down there, because it's a really rough, it's not developed, it's not, you know, it's just wild down there.
I bagged up some at my daughter-in-law's this morning.
Yeah.
I like to keep mine separately. Makes lovely leaf mould then.
Yes. Well, I haven't got enough to. Some of it's beech leaves, though. They don't break down, do they?
Oh, I don't have any beeches near me. But
Yeah.
I have got a magnolia which has got very leathery leaves, so they do take a long time to break down, but they eventually.
It's mostly off the front path, really. That's the problem.
Well, they can make it very slippery.
Yeah. Mind you, this morning I was disgusted to find when I went out there to blow off that someone's dog had messed on my path.
Oh.
They have to come through a gate.
Leslie.
Which was closed.
Yeah.
So why didn't the person who, however they got through, I don't know, but I would have thought they ought to have come and cleared it up.
Of course they should.
But I wasn't very pleased about that.
No.
Right. See if there's anybody else there. No. There's nobody else. There's actually 8 people booked on it, so there should be some more, at least a couple more.
I was worried in case I would forget how to do it.
Well, I haven't been using it so much, have we? We're still using it. We're still using it for some of our committee meetings where the committee is quite a big committee. But, you know, I'm not going to Zoom talks and things like I was before. Because people are getting together for that sort of thing, which is much nicer.
I missed the Victorian one. I don't know how I missed that one.
What, the Victorian box?
Mm.
Oh, that's a shame.
I was away for that one, so I couldn't do that one.
I don't, to be honest, I don't look at my emails very much. So that's a bit naughty, really. I got told off by my line dancer man, don't you ever look at them? I said, well, I only get 2 or 3. I sort of do it once a week or once a fortnight, if I remember.
Well, I'm going to start, even if, and then if anyone, I'll just have to keep an eye to make sure that I don't miss anybody coming in. But I'll switch to my other camera. Basically, those are, wait a minute, there's somebody just coming in. Where is she? There she is. Hi, Rachel. She's connecting to audio. For those of you who saw the Victorian talk, you'll find that the Regency, it's, as I think you'd probably expect, it's a much They're cleaner lines Regency workboxes, and a bit less fussy, shall we say, than the Victorian. The Victorian ones were very much mother of pearl, and inside the lid you get this very ruched, often padded panel, whereas that doesn't exist in the Regency boxes. But of course there was gradual change, so you can't really be too rigid about the differences. One of the other things that can vary, but not always, is whereas in the Victorian boxes you lift out a tray and there's a space underneath for your work. In some of the early Regency ones, the space for your work is above and there's a drawer for your tools. Or equally well, you have also got, rather than a lift out tray, you can have a drawer. But I'll show you some other examples. But the one I particularly want to show you is this one. There we go. It'll just take a minute and it should come up. It was there. Right. You can see that that is a beautiful walnut box with, it's got a gold inlay, and it's actually one of my prized possessions. When you open it, but you can see, I don't know, can you just see how this part here, which would be ruched in the Victorian, is not, but it is still this one, because it's it comes out, right, and you've got a mirror. As I say, this is a travelling box, so you've got the mirror there with the silk backing, and then underneath, it's a bit difficult to show you this, but can you see? That would be for your letters, would be underneath the mirror, whereas with the Victorian ones, you just fold it all down. But this is particularly interesting because it's a travelling box. It's got rather more tools in it. And I'm going to, there's two cups in it. They're both the same, or rather glasses, for taking things. And that one's got some rather, can you see, rather dirty debris. I haven't cleaned it out because goodness knows what it is in there from when it was used. And the other one is clean. But in front of them, we've got two bottles.
Oh.
And this one here, can you see? Oh, I don't know whether you can pick up the label. I can't get it into focus really. Anyway, that is ether.
Oh.
And the other one, even worse, this one here, which has got similar debris in it to that glass, is laudanum. And if you're in the know, which I hope you are, right, someone's asking for tiny sound, the camera moves around, so okay, if you can all mute then. The laudanum, of course, was opium, and widely used as a painkiller. So that's those two little bottles there. essential when you were a Regency lady for travelling round. In front, these two here, these would have been ink bottles. And this one, well, that would have been ink. And this one has got a little bit of something in it. Now, it could have also been ink, or they also used to sand their, when they'd been writing, sand the ink to help it dry. But usually that was a much smaller implement. Now, at the back here, we've got something that some of you, if you saw the Victorian, you might recognize. This is a sewing clamp for a table. It's in cut steel, and you would have clamped it onto the edge of the table, and it would be for hemming things, so that you would pin the sheet or whatever to one end, or use that just as an ordinary pincushion, but you could actually fix whatever you were working on to that end, and so you've got both hands free to do the hemming. So that's the purpose of that. And that sits in its little, and can you see, because it's a particularly good box, you've got the actual shape of the thing, so it's a perfect fit. If you ever come across one of these boxes with tools inside, you need to check because whether they're the original tools or not, and you should be able to make it out if it's got a space like that. And below it would be a space in which you, well, it is a space in which you can put various bits and pieces that you were working on. These scissors, you'll see, do not fit. They're not the perfect fit. They're not the perfect scissors. And scissors are one of the things which are the first to be lost from a workbox. Those scissors there, I've tried and tried to find a little pair of scissors that would fit in there, but I haven't yet found it. And usually this one does have, and I'm going to have to get one of these tools to help me. This is also the problem with having a workbox in a centrally heated house. I don't want that. There we are. Also, this is the original thimble, and these are ivory tools, but often the thimble goes missing as well, because out there are thimble collectors who will just, well, they're not worried about where the thimbles always come from. So in addition to that, you've got the implement I've just picked out, which is a stiletto for making holes, so that when you were with dressing, you had to have holes in the fabric to thread a ribbon through. So that's what that is. And here, can you see that in the middle of that, there, very slim, there's a slit, and that would be used for threading the ribbon through. But this has got a sort of dual purpose because it's got a point at this end, and in fact there's a certain other purpose at the other end. Those of you who saw the Victorian talk, that is an ear spoon. I'm just checking there's nobody in the waiting room. No, that is an ear spoon for getting wax out of your ear to wax your threads. And that sits in the middle, and that is the original. It's unusual again. That's the sort of silly little thing that often gets lost. There's a penknife, which again is not the original, but it's a reasonable match for it. But that would be there. That would be for sharpening your quill or whatever. I don't know whether it even opens, this one. I don't think I've ever had it open. It looks as if it does. It's in reasonable condition. This here they're all such a good fit that it's quite a job to get them out. This one here, actually, can you see them all? Would it be better if I did it here? Or is it better, is it okay when I'm doing it above the box? Anyway.
It's okay above the box, I think.
Right. That is for needles. So that's your needle case. It's got a very pretty shell design at the end. These would have been to hold balls of thread. And you can see, I think, from the glint, can you see these have got gold rims around them? So you've got a certain amount of cut steel and you've got a bit of gold bling here, and they fit beautifully into those. And you could also keep thread, especially any little bits of thread, because thread was very precious, on these little tiny thread winders. And this, they've actually got, trying to get the other one out as well. There you are. They've actually got some of the original silk still on them. So those are little thread winders, because thread was very precious and you saved every little bit that you could. Right. Then we've got this. And I say this because I'm not really sure about some of these things. Right, that just unscrews. That probably could have stored bodkins as well, longer needles than the other one there. But remember, you've also got that space under there to put some things in. And this one here, which is, again, like the others, trimmed with gold, that has got both ends unscrewed. And that would have probably held a tambour hook. I'm not really clear about that. Sometimes we have to sort of make best guesses. But you've got a container here for hooks. And then you would, or it could have been crochet hooks, but you've then got something to slot things onto at the other end. But it's quite fascinating sometimes to speculate on what these things are for. But that's not the end of the story with this box, because we've got another layer, which I'm going to try and get up to show you. And there's empty box and empty underneath. But in this other layer, we've got some really fascinating bits and pieces. We've got this here, which oh dear, they all They don't come out. I don't get them out very often, you've gathered that. Anyway, that I think is a toothbrush. I'm going to leave it around. It's on here, it says circa 1830. And I'm slightly horrified at how much I paid for it now, because I had forgotten. Anyway, so that's the toothbrush there. These here, with gold trim, would be for knitting needles, sheaths for the ends of the knitting needles, because their knitting needles were the double pointed ones like you use for stockings, and it would have had a ribbon between the two to hold them together. But when you finish knitting, you put them on either end and just hold them in place and keeps the wool on it. Then we've got this little thing here. And that would, it's supposed to be like a posy holder, but the hole is very small at the top here. So I'm not sure how much of a posy you'd be able to put in it, but that's what that is. I'm going to turn it around the other way, that's it. This was for when you were smoking. So that would have been for holding a cheroot or some, really, rather than cigarettes as we know them. But that's what that is. Here we've got, this is definitely the bottom of a tambour hook. And when you unscrew it, again with gold there, you unscrew it, open it up, put the handle back on, and you've got your tambour hook. One thing that's not here is a netting thing, but I'll show you, I'll talk to you about netting after, because that was quite a commodity. And this is another container. No, sorry, it isn't a container at all. I'd forgotten. This is actually a ruler, as you can see. And it's, I'm not really, those are obviously inches on this side. And then here you've got 1/12 and 1/6 and 1/8 dividing here, here, and here. So that's your ruler. I'd forgotten it had a ruler. And this one. Oh dear. Get the stiletto. Stiletto is very useful. Now this would have been for a little, can you see it's got like a little triangular flat, it's very flat, and it's probably for either lifting patches, or it could have a variety of uses, or powders or something like that, although it's not a spoon shape. So I'm not quite sure what that was for. Again, though, they're all trimmed with gold, these. This is the one I find particularly interesting. Now, it's got broken, not by me, but can you see from the shape of the opening, that at the end of it there'd be a wide, a sort of T shape at the end. That was for actually scraping your tongue to get the coating off it. Right? Not one of my favorite activities. So this was really, if you were going to travel, this is what the best lady would have required and taken with her. So that's your Regency box, which is very simple at the front as well, but beautiful wood, which I particularly like. Now, this box, this is not a traveling box. This is purely and simply a work box. That's it. Just always seems to be a delay on this to sew and what. Now this, can you, if I turn it on end, you can see you've got a drawer here. Right, so that's where you keep your work. And that's it there. And it's got these little claw feet. And at the end, you've got lion head with a hook. And it's what they call a sarcophagus shape. And again, you've got a little area here where you can put your initials. So this is actually covered in red Moroccan leather. It doesn't look very red out here, but you get the red effect when I open it. Now I'm going to try, I'm going to turn it round, because you know what I was saying about the top. Can you see there? It's a bit damaged, but that is silk. It's padded. It's not going to pull down to have any letters in it. They would have been in the drawer, and it's got a print on the top of it, but unfortunately at some point it's been damaged with paint. So inside, like this one is probably later than the other one. This one has its original scent bottle. And as I said, when we were talking about the Victorian boxes, they used to use scent in the form of, because it's got alcohol in it, to keep their fingers clean and not the grease from your fingers would not affect your work. So that's there. This one has got, there's unfortunately 3 reels missing, but these are very unusual reels. Can you see how elaborately carved? I can't, I'm never sure how much you're getting, you can see, because I've got a small version. Right, so these are very elaborately carved like sunflowers and screw middles, and these do unscrew, and you put a ball of thread, because that's how their threads came, in balls. So you've got 4 of those. You've got 2 here where you could put more thread on, and they all just slot out. Oh dear, never mind, I'll sort it later. Thimble, probably not the original. And this one, unfortunately, it brings its little surroundings with it every time it comes. This is a tape measure, which, I don't know, can you see the N there? This is actually measured, or was, but there's a lot of the tape been come away, measured in nails at one point. So it's a damaged tape, but it's better damaged with that in it than putting a new ribbon in. This is a finger shield, which works with the thumb, with the, no good for my fingers, but protects your sort of the side of your finger from getting pierced when you're working. You've got a pair of cut steel scissors, probably not the original ones, but they are about the right size. Your bodkin here with the slit for the, it's not showing up very well, for threading the ribbon. We've got penknife. I don't think that's the original penknife. And this is a very basic stiletto for making holes. We've got, this time, a little book for your needles rather than a needle case, which slots in there. We've got two very attractive pin cushions in the same as here, and unfortunately someone's used it at some point and damaged the pin cushion there, and it's not a particularly beautiful pin that they put in, so we'll get to that. And then here we've got some more of those several of them, thread winders in different shapes. Some people just collect the thread winders because some of them are made of silver and gold and they can be really quite valuable. There's glass ones, there's all sorts of different ones. Quite fascinating, and it's an easy thing for people to collect because they're quite obviously small. I'll show you some bigger ones later. There's a little tiny little pin cushion here that was in the box when I bought it. This is another box. There's another pair of scissors in there, but that again would be a space for storing. But you see, this tray is solid in the box. What there also is a very little purse here with and unfortunately you can't really read it particularly, but there's actually the name in there, piece of tiny piece of paper with the name of the owner of the box and their address on it. Sometimes you get little messages and things, but it's a lovely little leather purse. I'm not going to push that back. So that's the sarcophagus shape in Moroccan leather. Now, you can also get them in wood. So I'm going to put that one out of the way. Swap around. Now, here we've got a little box. And it's beautiful, beautiful mahogany with probably satinwood or something else around the edge. And again, that very characteristic sort of Regency type shape with this round here. And this is a child's box. Now it's been relined, so the pink is a bit stronger than it probably would have been, and it hasn't got any padding or anything there. But it's and when I bought it, it was empty, so I have filled it with appropriate things. These are ivory thread holders, and you unscrew the top and out pops your thread. The ball would have been on there. And I put 4 of those in. I put a little tiny little egg here, which unscrews, and there's some little beads inside. That could have been little eggs like this. Oh, yeah. Shouldn't have unscrewed it. Little eggs like this were made. That could be an early Tunbridge ware, because Tunbridge ware was painted before you ever had the mosaic type of work. And they were also, they would have had in their work boxes, they would have had an egg shape for darning their gloves. So you'd use it as a, you'd push it down to the end of the glove to darn the ends, because they were very fine, the gloves, and they were also very precious. So I'll put that there for safety. This is a sort of fairly large thimble, in fact, for a child, but you do also get very tiny, absolutely minuscule finger thimbles, which would have fitted into that egg that children were given. So that's your thimble. And alongside here, we've got a tape measure. And this is, I don't know whether it's original, but it's quite nicely marked. And this is what I call, I don't know if you can see the markings on it. It is ivory. And these are what I call little spot and dots. They're burnt circles, burnt in with a dot in the inside, and that is known as madras ware. And here you've got a little book for needles, and you've got, I've got treasure trove down there. This is stiletto and a little pair of scissors and an ear spoon. And this time it's got tweezers on the opposite end. So this is probably a bit later in some ways, or at least the tools are, but as I say, they're not original. And here, this is another one of the madras ware. I like the madras ware, but I recently sold quite a lot of it because it's ivory. And this would have been used either, in this case, that's a pin poppet, and you would have had, it's like a little tiny pin cushion inside the container, or sometimes the little screw top containers held a scent bottle. And here you've got your pin cushion, which slots in there. This would have been more threads to be wound on here. And here's another one of those thread winders, a different shape this time with some markings on it. This is they're very adaptable, you see. You think you know what they are, but you have to unscrew things. And that's your stiletto. But the point would be protected by the container. Then you've got this, which is a lovely little thing. And I absolutely love it because it's so touchy-feely. And this has got beads in it. Now, I don't know whether you can appreciate, if I open it, how tiny. Can you see how tiny those beads are? They are I'm trying to think how big they are. They're smaller than anything you can buy nowadays. And they are probably less than 1 millimeter. So that's a very precious little container. And I think we met the emery last time. And this is a typical old emery for sharpening it contains emery powder, and it's for sharpening your needles and getting the rust off them and your pins. And it's in the traditional form of a strawberry. But that's been knitted at some point. But these are some of those little tiny beads. We've got a little tatting shuttle. They used tatting in particularly Regency days. It was a way of showing off how beautiful your hands were. So you would tat, or you'd carry it on your wrist in a little bag and go out somewhere, and you'd be sitting talking to people and tatting to show off your beautiful hands. Or netting would be the other thing that you might be doing, but it's more likely tatting in that case. Ah, I have got it. This is another one of those little eggs. I think, oh no, this is a vinaigrette. You can see the little tiny holes. Again, you know that they used to have the vapors so much, so they had to be woken up. So that's your little vinaigrette there would have been smelling salts inside. And often you can smell it. Sometimes they've even got the little sponge on which the smelling salts were found. This is a little screw top box, and goodness knows what they put in some of these because they're so tiny. So I really can't tell you what that was for. I don't know whether anybody knows. More thread winders. And this one is also a thread winder. So you've got for saving your little ends of threads. So you've got variety of those. And what else have we got in here? And this one says, think of me. It's actually got Prince of Wales feathers on it, but that would be a little notebook. And I've got one with its original pencil, and the pencil is actually made of silver. So you wrote on it with a silver lead, not not a graphite lead, but a silver lead. So that would be in there. Well, not in there. As I say, I put these things in. It's my little treasure trove in there. But they're all sort of child size, so they are appropriate. And I'll just pop that back on top. And I'll put that in later. So that's a children's box. Are we okay for time? Yes. This one is I like Regency boxes better than Victorian ones, by the way, which is why I've got more. This one's beautifully inlaid, and it's also got some inlay veneer on the front. Just so you can see here on the bottom, this is the bottom. Some of them have got bays on the bottom, but this one was before they put bays on the bottom. And this is very simple inside. You've just got the one pad there just to protect things. I have put, because I cannot get hold of, but this is the sort of way that the threads would have come. These are modern, but your threads would have come in balls like this, and you would have slotted them onto the thread holders. Again, you've got slots here for holding different threads. And this one's got its key. And there's a little, this is a pincushion with a little tiny tapestry on there. I don't know that we have needles fine enough to work that tapestry anymore, but it's in the form of a book. I have seen canvas that's small enough for working. It's like on miniature work, and I think it's 100 count to the inch, something like that. And one of the reasons I'm showing you this is because look at this beautiful pinwheel. The pins go in around the edge, which you might be able to see some of them. And can you see the beautiful, beautiful beadwork on it? And that is those tiny, tiny beads. And on the reverse, you've got the leaves are painted, but the little beads from the lily of the valley. It's absolutely minuscule. They're exquisite. And I've got the usual bits and pieces in here. I'm not going through them every time. Bodkin, etc. And here we've got another needle case. Needle cases come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. This is painted. It looks a bit like corn, but it isn't. We've got another little vinaigrette for people to have their smelling salts in. Now this one's got a loop at the top, a metal loop. It could have come off a chatelaine. You do sometimes find odd bits and pieces that have come off chatelaines originally. Another tape measure. This is probably more appropriate for in here because it's wood. And another pincushion. This time it's painted. I'm not sure whether, can you see these things? Because I can't see them very well. I don't know how I can make them any clearer. Now again, you've got a space underneath, and as is my wont, I put bits in. This is actually Chinese, or from China originally, because they're Chinese scissors, but that's just a work thing. But this is another one of those beaded pincushions with the tiny, tiny beads. I wish you could handle it, and then you'd be able to see how beautifully it's worked. You'll all have to come on a visit. Are we okay? I haven't finished yet. Now, I mentioned those Chinese scissors. Chinoiserie was very important in those days, very popular. And I happen to love the yellow of this and the yellow boxes. I always wanted one that when you opened was yellow inside. I haven't managed to get one, but I've got a yellow outside. So this is lacquered box, and you've got Chinese seams or semi-Chinese seams around it. It's not really that, as it were, Chinese. It's their perception of China. As I say, it's, I think I did show you some of these pieces out of here last time. Late Regency, probably. You've got the cut steel here, which actually, I'll show you because that is worked. So you've got a pattern on it, it's engraved, and you can see it's a beautiful design on there. And some of the cut steel is really lovely. You've got an ear spoon and tweezers with the same design on it. These didn't come with the box, I put them in, but they actually are a set. So you've got the tweezers with the ear spoon. I've even got this time the proper scissors, the cut steel scissors, very slender, you'll notice the blades. A bodkin and a cut steel needle case with engraving. And I chose to put in here, these are all vegetable ivory, which are made from nuts. I think I showed some of you last time, but you've got they're coquilo nuts from South America, which are carved. And you've got the tape measure, the pincushion, you've got a needle book and the thread holders there with a carved design on the top. Has anyone got any questions so far, or are you all okay? I don't mind you unmuting yourself to just ask the odd question. Right. Now, I'll have to just move my light. This is a biggie coming out. Oh, real story to attach to this box. Now, all you've got at the moment is a big big box lid, and I can't, unfortunately, it is such a big thing, I can't really get it on my camera without having the camera up very high. But if you look at the front of it, which we might be able to get on camera, you've got a a drawer here, and then the lid. The handles, this again would have been a traveling box. The handles are totally recessed into the wood. So, you know, like those military, oh, I've got that one out. Can you see there? That's the handle coming up. There. So that goes flat in. Once it's back down, it's totally flat. And that goes for the drawer as well. Now this, I mentioned before that you sometimes get a workbox with space for your work in the top in Regency times, with the rest of it in a drawer, and I'll explain the drawer in a minute. My husband and I found this on an antique fair in Exeter, and the dealer was telling us that we didn't actually find the box first. I'm going to pull the drawer out and show you. Let me get the handle up. What we saw on the store was not the box, but these reels. Now, they're turned, beautifully turned wood. There's one, there should be 6 large ones. There's one missing. Sorry, no, there's 5 large ones. And then there would have been 5 middle-sized ones. So that's those. And then there were all these little ones, this size, which all fit down the side, and there would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those. And in the 2 spaces here, there's another one of these, but this one, for some reason, is too tall and it's been damaged, obviously. And so I have to put it in there. But in here, we have got a whole load of thread holders in mahogany, very fine, beautifully made. I did manage to find a little waxer. So this has got wax around here to wax your thread, but that didn't come with the other tools. And this is a tape measure, which again, it matches, but I'm not sure that it's original. And the thimble. But all we saw on the stand was the reels, all of them, and those. My husband said, you've got to have those, they're so beautiful. And we talked to the dealer, and she told us they'd come out of this box. And to my horror, what had happened was she'd been round to someone's house, I gather, and he was using the box as a document box, but he didn't want all the bits and pieces. So she bought the bits and pieces off him without the box. We persuaded her that she could go back to the owner of the box. We'd have the reels, but could she go back to the owner of the box and talk to him to see if he would part with his box? And what she did, she went back and she offered him another alternative box, which was probably better for his documents than this one. And when we next saw her, we bought the box. So it's a very special box, and it's very special for another reason, because when I got it and I opened this, which still has no tools on top, because I don't know whether to repair it or not, I discovered it was the maker. It was made by D. Edwards, who was by appointment to the Duke of York at that time. So this is way back in time. And he was one of the most important box makers of that particular period in time. So you can imagine I was particularly pleased to find that I'd got the whole box. And in it, there's also this, which goes into one of these holes here. There's another one, but the other's missing. To hold the box, the drawer, in place when it's actually in the box. And in the top of the box, you've got that metal would have gone through into the hole there to hold the drawer from coming out. And in the top of the box, what I've done here, these are not particularly old. This is some floss. This is the thing that's interesting. This is a notebook, and they're not really in keeping with the box, so we'll forget about them. They're not anything special, but they just make it. I find if you've got something in the box, it makes it a bit more interesting than just opening an empty box. Now this is straw work. It is literally made of straw, and I will show you what it actually is. The inside comes out, and you've got these beautiful figures worked in the straw, and it's very fragile indeed. And inside here, this bit is it's damaged. It would normally open out like that. And these are very thin. I can't, oh, there we are. If you can see there, and because before thread came in, silk thread came in, didn't come in balls particularly, that was cotton thread. When you were using silks, they would be in skeins, and you would put them between the papers in one of these, or sometimes down channels in a leather one, but they would be in channels. But this is what this is, and when you put it back, you'll see that all the design on the top fits exactly opposite the spaces in between. It's a particularly beautiful piece. Right. Another one with a story, and I think this is my last one. Yes. This again is Regency. Satin wood with inlay round the edge, and you've got a painted centre here. I bought this at auction. The auctioneer, if you are interested at all, and it's worthwhile having a look on their website at the moment, because they've got a sewing sale coming up on November the 24th, I think it is. Anyway, it's towards the end of November, but they have their catalogue on the online at the moment if you wanted to have a look. It's the name is Bleasdales, B-L-E-A-S-D and Dales, D-A-L-E-S, auctioneers. They're based in Leamington Spa, and the auctions are usually held in Warwick, but at the moment they're online. But if you wanted to just not necessarily buy anything, but just look and feast your eyes on all the different possible variations there are on boxes, etc. And the person I used to help, I used to go and sit with her at the NEC Antiques Fair, and I also did the same at Westonbirt. She died in September 2020, and part of her collection, you'll see some of them, it says Enid Riney Collection Part 2. Well, Part 1 was sold early this year, and those who saw my Victorian one saw the tarts box, which I bought at the previous auction. Having said, I'm not going to buy any more embroidery tools now that she's not around. But these he specializes in, there's Mauchline ware, there's tartan ware, Tunbridge ware, and needlework and embroidery tools. And he also sells lace and all sorts of things like that. But he's very much the specialist. So it's worthwhile having a look to just see what's out there. This one I bought very cheaply at auction, because when I bought it, it was filthy. It was absolutely filthy. And the only reason I bought it was because when I looked inside, get that bit, this is what I saw. And it's actually a netting box. Come on, that's it, better. Netting box. This is a netting box, as opposed to a sewing box. And I took it home when I bought it, because I did manage to get it quite cheaply. And I cleaned it up, and I found this beautiful transfer print on the top, and it was beautiful satin wood. It was wonderful, and it was just such a joy to, I've done that with 1 or 2 boxes, and it's an absolute joy if you find a really dirty one or a bit scruffy one. Sometimes I bought one in an antique fair some time ago. I did a lot more of this when my husband was alive, which was in a field, you know, and the box was all damp and horrible. But I cleaned it up and I got a beautiful box out of it. And this is the inside of the box. And just to show you what you'd find in a netting box, this has got a bit of the netting in it. And that's one of the needles for doing the netting with. And there's more of the same here. They're like long needles, but they're not knitting needles. They've got a gap either end like that, so that you can see them there. They're all in there. This is a reel, a this twists round, and you would turn and put your netting on there, turn it, and to keep your netting, there's actually a little lever at the end to hold it in place. This would have held thread, this in the middle here. These again would have held thread on balls or on reels inside. They're like the thread barrels we saw elsewhere. This is the type of thread. This actually is genuine old thread. And you can see how very fine it is. The only people I know who use thread as fine as this now are lace makers, and most of those wouldn't use anything as fine as that. There happened to be a rather nice pin cushion in it as well, but that's not necessarily contemporary with the piece. And so you've got your work correct. These are sort of measuring sticks for your netting to make sure that the spacing is correct. And you've got pin cushion at one end and a needle book at the other. And this has got some of the needles in. And again, a little note from somebody. Some of their needles really, really tiny. You can get a few nowadays. And these look like barrels, but actually this one would have held a thimble. And this one has got the original tape measure inside, if it will come out. And again, this one's even better. You know, I talked about nails before. That's measured in nails, 1/4 yard on one side, 2/4 yards on the other, and the nails. So that's the original tape and the original tape measure. So, and what's nice about it is when you look at this, there's actually a slot there. So when you put that in, the tape goes into the slot and the whole thing doesn't roll around. And that's my last little story. And just so you might have wondered what this I hipped off the top was. This is cut steel. This is probably Dutch actually. But if you were doing your netting or when you were out and about, or even your tatting, you could put your thread on this and you hooked it onto your belt, and then you could work above for netting or tambour work or anything like that. And it's a stirrup for holding. And there we are. I just hope you managed to get enough out of it. Do unmute yourselves now because I've finished.
Well, it's a beautiful collection you have. It's fascinating, all the little tools.
Yeah, I love it. And it's a nice, because I do embroidery, it's quite nice to have them. I don't always use them, but sometimes I use odd bits and pieces.
Yes.
I was just going to ask whether you did any of the actual crafts.
Yes, I do. I do embroider. I learnt I learnt from my mother, but I used to just do basic cross stitch, and then what we call tapestry, which isn't really tapestry but is grow point. And I did quite a lot of canvas work because I found that I really enjoyed that. It's geometric and relatively straightforward to do, because I was working full time a lot of the time I was doing things, but I never stopped doing something or other. But I always wanted to do things with sort of different stitches, and I wanted to learn the different stitches. And I went first of all to change it so you've got me. I went first of all on a course at Chipping Camden when they had a needlecraft centre there. A lovely shop, actually, fantastic shop full of threads. And I learned to do some crewel work, which was all the different stitches there. And then I went to Denman College on a course. I won a bursary, and so I went on an embroidery course. And I learned to do sort of freer embroidery. I had my godmother, who was my mother's cousin. She did embroidery and that sort of thing. It was obviously more than just embroidery, but at Birmingham College of Art, she actually lectured there. So she encouraged me. But I didn't live near enough to go and learn from her. And then at Denman, I did more crewel work with Julie Walsby, really extensive crewel work to learn how to do it properly. That's the Jacobean wool embroidery like you see on Elizabethan beds sometimes. And from her, I also learned Elizabethan embroidery, the sort of thing. Have you seen they had embroidered waistcoats and jackets and caps. And so I learned to do that type of embroidery, which is very fine. And I found I like fine stuff. I actually enjoy doing fine things better than, I can't do big and bold. I just, when I start doing something big and bold, it gets smaller. So I just end up doing very fine stuff. And all this time I was doing the embroidery, I was also making lace. And I did a lot of lace, and my main activity at that time was making lace. But gradually the embroidery took over from the lace. I suppose I learned as much as I wanted in the lace line, although again, I did very, very fine lace work. I used thread as fine as that one I showed you, and still do actually. And when I moved to Stroud, I discovered Jackie Hall and Japanese embroidery, which is silk on silk. And I just love silk, and I love working in silk. So I do my lace in silk if I can. I do my Elizabethan embroidery in silk. And I've even done a bit of silk embroidery in China when I went on a tour that was a textile tour. We ended up having a short class sessions, about 3 days of Chinese embroidery as well. So, but the Japanese is probably, now that Denman's closed, I'm not going to have the chance to work with Julie Walsby again, but I've got much, I've done gold work as well. You name it, I have a go. I just love it. But I do tend to do it, the finer it is, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And the more silk that's involved, the better. Yeah, I just love it. But this was sort of went alongside it really. And my husband he was even more of a collector than I am. And he just encouraged me. Unfortunately, he sort of, in a way, encouraged me too much, because I ended up, when I moved, downsized with so much, I had to get rid of some, and I've had another go recently, mainly because of a lot was ivory. I've still got quite a bit of ivory. They are still selling ivory. It's not stopped completely, but I could see that there could be a big issue with it. It doesn't really save the elephants that have died long ago, you know, but the thing is, what's happening now is that certain parts of the world, they're buying up ivory to make copies of the old antique tools. And that's where the problem lies, really, because as the chap at Bleasdale's, who I know not that well, but I've met him, I was talking to him after the last sale, and he was saying about the ivory. He said if they stop ivory sale completely, it won't help the elephants, because what they'll do is they'll turn to getting it from elephants. Whereas if they can buy, you know, old billiard balls were made of ivory. If they can buy old billiard balls, they can use those to make their tools from, their carving. And that's what they do. They buy them all up and use them for carving. So it's almost better to have a certain amount of ivory that's old and the elephant's long dead than having them kill elephants that are alive today to get the ivory. But I can never quite understand why they burn the tusks. Why not just flood the market, you know? But I don't suppose I'm not the perfect answer to that. But ivory.
Back to another question I've got.
Yes.
Not to do with ivory. You did the tape measures and you said it was measured in nails.
Yes.
Can you tell me any more about that? How do they measure in nails, and how do we get to inches?
Well, it predates inches. That was their measure, was like, you know, the yard is a particular length, isn't it? And the foot and and nails came before inches. But I don't know, I've never actually looked into the history of it particularly, but I know that there's quite a bit of information out there on it, because there's some other, I've forgotten, there was something I came across only the other day in a crossword clue, and it was an old measure that I'd never even heard of. So there's a lot, you know, like L is another one, isn't it? ELL, isn't that lengths of cloth?
Don't know.
No, and
So
then
inch is quite recent.
measured in other things, isn't it? Quire of paper and things like that. You can do a bit of research on it.
We'd all better get together and do it. And see what we can find.
But it's not, the nail bit is not, I don't know whether it comes from, I'm only surmising now, but do you think it comes from, because it's about, a nail is about the same length as an inch, there's not much in it. It comes from the length of a thumbnail or something like that.
Oh.
I'm just guessing. I have no facts to base that on, but it sounds as if that's a possibility. But and why, I don't know. I mean, they weren't very accurate, a lot of these measures, for ages. And then they gradually standardized them, didn't they? And then we went metric, of course, but the Americas still works in inches and feet and inches, yards, feet and inches.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I do as well. It's easier.
I can't, well, now you see, I don't find it easier, but I think that's because I taught science at school. I taught biology actually, but it was basically science. And so when I was in the laboratory, all measurements were metric. So I had to work in degrees centigrade, in liters, in centimeters, and all the rest of it when I was at work. So actually, when everything turned that way, it was much easier for me. I just stopped forgetting. I can still think in yards and inches, and funnily enough, if someone says how tall I am, I can't do that metric. I weigh myself metric.
Yes. I'm the same.
Yeah. Oh, we're creatures of habit, aren't we? It's a bit difficult sometimes to change. If you talk to the youngsters, they won't know what you're talking about. And as for sixpence and threepence and...
I know, but it took a long time for us to, you always went back to how much was that in 50p,
Yes.
how much is 50p and that in the old money. It took a long time to work that one out, didn't it, really? Well, it did for me.
Yeah. Well, then you go back, if you go back far enough, it was guineas, wasn't it, that everything was in? And what is it? Is it racehorses are still sold in guineas, aren't they? Or
Oh, yes, I think so, yeah.
I think they are. There's somewhere I know that they still keep the guinea. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, all that, really. So I think social history is more interesting than the all the wars and the treaties and all that stuff. I wish we did that. I wished I'd done that at school rather, well, they didn't do that at school, but it would have been nice. Yeah.
I think they do more things like that now, though, don't they?
They do, actually, yes. And you get quite a lot on the television too, which, you can learn. That's why I've been, I've finished it now, but I've just been doing a course from the V&A, online course on the English country house. But before that, I did a textile one on fashion through the ages and then fashion around the world. And, I think it's just really interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you very much, ladies.
Well, thank you for your talk.
Thank you. It was very interesting.
Yes,
Right.
it was. Yeah,
If
lovely.
you're ever Stroud way, let me know and you can come and have a look. Yeah. Bye then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.